Chapter 1, 37 Seconds. I discovered my husband had already erased me before he filed for divorce. While I was still living in our house, he told another woman I was dead. He drained our family accounts, forged documents, and thought I would never look at the numbers. He was wrong. I am Lillian Cole, and what I found inside a single bank statement did not just end my marriage, it triggered something much bigger. My marriage ended at 6:12 on a Thursday evening in April of 2024, and my husband did it in 37 seconds. I was standing in my kitchen in Brookfield, Wisconsin, basting a pot roast when my phone started vibrating across the counter. Nathan's name lit up the screen. He almost never called. He preferred texts. Calls required tone. Tone required effort. I answered on the second ring. "I filed for divorce today. From now on, you will speak to my attorney. Do not contact me directly." He did not ask if I was sitting down. He did not ask where I was. He did not say my name. The line went dead before I could speak. 37 seconds. My phone slipped from my hand and dropped straight into the pot roast. I watched it disappear under the thick brown gravy, bubbles rising slowly to the surface, and I did nothing. I just stood there, staring at it sinking as if I were watching the last 11 years of my life dissolve in real time. What I did not understand yet was that the divorce was not the betrayal. It was the distraction. My name is Lillian Harper Cole. I turned 41 in February. I have lived in the same brick house in Brookfield since 2015. Zillow estimates it at $430,000. We still owe $187,000 on the mortgage. Numbers always mattered to Nathan. I met him in 2012 at a fundraising gala in downtown Milwaukee. He was polished, confident, already moving upward at Great Lakes Mutual Insurance. By 2019, he had become senior risk director, earning around $175,000 a year, plus performance bonuses. His specialty was compliance audits and internal fraud investigations. He knew exactly how systems caught people. I worked as a dental hygienist in Waukesha. Reliable hours, clean paychecks. In 2020, when his role expanded and travel increased, I shifted to part-time. It felt logical. One career accelerated, the other adjusted. I trusted him with the investments, with the transfers, with the retirement accounts. I never logged into our joint savings account after 2021. That sentence feels different now. The changes started subtly in 2022. More overnight trips to Minneapolis, client dinners that ended well past 10, a new passcode on his phone for security reasons, early morning gym sessions that required him to leave before 5. He stopped explaining. He started informing. That Thursday night, standing in my kitchen with gravy soaking into my sleeves, I realized I had been informed for years. I tried calling him back, straight to voicemail. I sent a text asking where he was. No response. Another asking if this was real. Nothing. An hour later, his mother Diane called. "Nathan told us he filed," she said calmly. "It might be best if you give him space. You tend to escalate when you are upset." Escalate, as if I were a corporate liability. I told her I was fine and ended the call. I did not cry, not because I was strong, but because something colder had taken over. Shock has a temperature. It is not hot. It is freezing. I walked out to the garage and sat inside my car with the engine off. The house looked untouched from the driveway, porch light glowing, lawn trimmed. The American flag hanging beside the front door moved slightly in the wind. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. After 20 minutes, I went back into the kitchen. The edges of the pot roast were burned. I turned off the stove and retrieved my phone with tongs. It was completely dead. Upstairs, I opened my laptop. For the first time in years, I logged into our joint savings account at First Horizon Bank. The login page loaded. I hesitated before typing the password Nathan created in 2018. It still worked. The dashboard appeared. The balance number made no sense. We were supposed to have just over $70,000 in savings. We had built it carefully since 2020. The screen showed $14,863.12. I refreshed the page. Same number. My pulse slowed instead of racing. Something inside me began calculating. I opened the transaction history and scrolled. Transfers. 2,000, 3,500, 4,000, over and over, spread across months, always to the same external account I did not recognize, always below reporting thresholds. He specialized in fraud detection. He knew the thresholds. He thought I would never check. That realization cut deeper than the divorce call. Divorce is emotional. This was engineered. I opened my investment account that held $120,000 my father left me in 2020, money from 38 years on a factory floor in Kenosha, money he told me to protect. Nathan convinced me in 2021 to add his name for convenience. The balance was almost gone. For a moment, I couldn't feel my fingers on the keyboard. He had already left. He just forgot to tell me. This was not a fight that spiraled. It was not an impulsive decision. It was a timeline. He moved the money before he moved himself. I grabbed a notebook from the desk drawer and began writing down dates and amounts. My handwriting was steady. My breathing was even. I felt less like a wife and more like an auditor reviewing discrepancies. Senior risk director, corporate compliance specialist, man who lectured junior analysts about ethical standards. From now on, you will speak to my attorney. He said it like he had already won. I stared at the number on the screen one more time. $14,863.12. That's when something shifted inside me. The divorce was not the beginning. It was the exit, and I was the last person to know. Chapter 2. The numbers don't lie. I did not close the laptop. I leaned forward and opened the transaction history again, this time slower, like I was reviewing evidence instead of numbers. The balance in our joint account at First Horizon still showed $14,863.12. It should have been closer to $70,000. We had discussed that number in January. We celebrated it on New Year's Eve. Now it looked like a lie. I scrolled back to March of 2021. $2,000 transferred out, $3,500 a month later, $4,000 the next quarter. The pattern repeated, small enough not to raise alarms, large enough to hollow out the account over time. I opened a spreadsheet and began typing. Date, amount, destination, running total. $52,400 moved out of our joint savings over 3 years. Not withdrawn in cash, not gambled away. Transferred. Hidden transfers. I felt something inside me click into place. He did not just leave me, he liquidated me. I opened the investment account next, the inheritance my father left me in 2020, $110,000 from decades of factory shifts in Kenosha, money he told me to keep safe, money he called my backbone. Nathan convinced me in 2021 to add his name to the account for convenience. We are married, he said. It is all marital assets anyway. The balance now showed $13,480. I recalculated twice. $96,520 gone. This was not overspending. This was structured. The transfers from both accounts shared a rhythm. Most of them were under $10,000, carefully spaced, intentionally sized. It looked like structured transactions designed to avoid reporting thresholds. Nathan had built his career at Lakeview Assurance in Milwaukee, investigating internal fraud and compliance violations. He lectured junior analysts about suspicious activity reports and audit flags. He knew exactly what banks noticed. He thought I would never check the joint account. My phone buzzed. The backup phone I had activated earlier lit up with missed calls from Nathan's attorney's office. I ignored them and called Claire Donovan instead. She answered immediately. Tell me he did not empty everything. Not everything, I said. Just enough. How much? Between savings and my inheritance, around $148,000. She inhaled sharply. Lila, that is not marital tension, that is asset concealment. The word landed heavily. I told her about the pattern, the consistent amounts just below typical reporting thresholds. That sounds deliberate, she said. That sounds criminal. He handles fraud investigations for a living, I replied. He knows exactly how to avoid internal reviews. Then he also knows that patterns leave trails, she said quietly. After we hung up, I went back to the spreadsheet. I sorted the transactions chronologically. The frequency increased in 2023. The largest cluster of transfers happened between October 2023 and March 2024, right before he filed. He moved the money first, then he filed for divorce. I searched my email for lease agreements, rental applications, forwarding addresses. Nothing under my name, nothing under our shared address. Then I typed his full name with his middle initial, Nathan R. Cole. There it was, a signed residential lease dated July 2nd, 2023 for a one-bedroom apartment in River North, Chicago. Monthly rent $2,850. Security deposit paid in full. Lease term 12 months. He had another address for 9 months. He had another life for 9 months. And I never once questioned the Chicago trips. I walked to the garage and unzipped the side pocket of his golf bag. He had not played in over a year. Inside was a prepaid phone. Not deeply hidden, just placed somewhere I would never look. I powered it on. Messages flooded the screen. Dinner reservations, hotel confirmations, plans for weekends in Chicago, photos of wine glasses and skyline views. Then I saw it. Once the divorce is final, we can set a date. Camille deserves the truth. I felt the air leave my lungs. Camille? I scrolled through months of messages. He told her we had been separated emotionally for years. He told her I understood the divorce. He told her he stayed out of obligation. He told her I would be fine. I typed Camille Cole into a search engine. Nothing. Then I typed Camille Hart, Chicago, attorney. Camille Hart, founding partner at Hart & Layton Family Law, Chicago Loop. A professional headshot appeared, early 40s, confident, specializing in high-asset divorce litigation and asset tracing. I stared at the screen. He was not just having an affair, he was engaged to a divorce attorney. I called my mother. He moved almost all of it, I said, savings and the inheritance. How much? Almost $148,000. Did you document every transfer? She asked. Yes. Good. Numbers don't lie, even when husbands do. He used structured transfers, under reporting thresholds. There was a pause. Then he knows the system, she said, but systems still leave footprints. I leaned against the kitchen counter and closed my eyes. This was no longer about betrayal in the emotional sense. This was forensic. He engineered the exit. He controlled the timing. He believed he understood risk. He thought filing first meant winning first. I looked again at the lease in River North, at the prepaid phone in my hand, at the spreadsheet glowing on my laptop. Joint account drained, inheritance siphoned, divorce filing executed, girlfriend who specialized in dismantling marriages. He had designed every step. He just didn't anticipate that I would audit the design. And once you start following numbers, they always lead somewhere. Chapter 3. The Lawyer. A glass tower overlooking the Chicago River was not where I expected the numbers to take me. 2 mornings after I found the lease in the prepaid phone, I drove into the city before sunrise. Traffic was light. My hands were steady on the steering wheel. I parked near LaSalle Street and walked into Hart & Whitman Family Law with a folder tucked under my arm. The reception area was quiet, carpeted, intentionally calm. A young woman at the front desk looked up. Do you have an appointment? No, I said. This is about Nathan R. Cole. Her fingers froze above the keyboard. One moment. A door opened down the hall. Camille Hart stepped out. She was poised, early 40s, dark hair pulled back neatly. On her left hand was a diamond ring that caught the light when she moved. I recognized it immediately. $14,800 charged to a corporate card in May. Her eyes met mine. Can I help you? My name is Lillian Cole. The color drained from her face. She did not pretend not to know the name. She did not ask who I was. Please, she said softly, come into my office. The door closed behind us. Her office overlooked the river, framed degrees on the wall, shelves lined with case files, the kind of room where marriages were dissected professionally. She remained standing. I need to understand why you are here, she said. You told my husband you would represent him in our divorce. Her jaw tightened. He told me his wife died in 2020, car accident. The air shifted. I looked at her directly. I did not die. There it was. He erased me before he divorced me. Camille slowly lowered herself into her chair. He showed a documentation, she said, a copy of a death certificate. It had a county seal. My stomach turned. He forged it, I replied. She exhaled slowly. I have not formally appeared in court on his behalf, she said. The filing came through intake under Nathan R. Cole. My associate processed it. Conflict checks run through specific name variations and declared relationships. If he identified himself as widowed and used his middle initial, it would not have flagged automatically. He had studied the system from the inside. I placed a spreadsheet of transfers on her desk. While he was telling me I was dead, I said, he was draining our joint accounts and my inheritance. She scanned the pages quickly. Her eyes moved faster than mine ever could. These are structured, she said quietly. Under 10,000 each time. Below common reporting thresholds. He investigates fraud for a living, I said. He knows how banks think. She leaned back and stared at the numbers. When did the transfers begin? Mid-2021. Her expression shifted slightly. He started seeing me in late 2022. The timeline aligned almost perfectly. She stood up and walked toward the window. The river below moved steadily, indifferent. He asked me hypotheticals, she said after a moment, about marital assets, about whether moving funds prior to filing could be defended as routine management, about intent. And what did you tell him? I told him courts look at patterns, judges look at concealment. Intent matters. Her eyes drifted to my left hand. My wedding ring was still there. Without thinking, I looked at hers. For a split second, the room held something sharp and silent between us. Not jealousy. Recognition. We had both been briefed. I did not know he was married, she said. I know, I replied. And I did, because the woman sitting across from me did not look like someone who would knowingly build a life on a lie that large. She picked up her phone. Ava, I need the intake file on Nathan R. Cole, now. A few minutes later, a young associate stepped into the office holding a folder. She looked nervous. I did not know, she said quickly. He presented documentation. It appeared legitimate. Camille flipped through the pages. Misrepresentation at minimum, she murmured. Potential forgery. She closed the file. I am withdrawing from any involvement with him immediately, effective now. I felt something settle inside me. Not relief, not yet. Alignment. I am not here to argue, I said. I'm here because the numbers lead here. She nodded once. Then we follow them. Later that afternoon, she referred me to Dana Morales, a forensic accountant in Oak Brook. Dana was calm, methodical, precise. She reviewed the joint account, the inheritance account, and the timeline of transfers. Total removed from your personal account is $148,920. Transfers are structured. Intent appears deliberate. She pulled up additional records. There are also reimbursement claims submitted to his employer, Lakeview Assurance, from 2022 through early 2024. I leaned forward. How much? $38,400. travel and entertainment expenses overlapping with the River North lease. He was billing the company while funding the apartment? It appears so. The room felt smaller. He was siphoning from home and from work. Dana folded her hands. This is not sloppy. This is designed. I almost laughed. Yes, it was designed. Camille's voice was steady when she ended the call. He wanted you to speak to his lawyer, she said. There was no hesitation now. Now the law will speak to him. I looked at the organized stack of statements, lease agreements, and screenshots spread across the desk. The system he trusted was no longer abstract. It was documented. And documentation changes everything. Chapter 4. The Collapse. Paper only matters when someone has to read it out loud. On August 14, 2024, Camille filed the civil complaint in DuPage County Circuit Court. Fraudulent transfer, asset concealment, breach of fiduciary duty. The words were sterile on paper. They were not sterile when delivered. 2 mornings later, a process server walked into Lakeview Assurance at 9:30 in the morning. Nathan was in the open bullpen, mid-conversation with 2 analysts. The envelope was handed to him in front of everyone. Fraudulent transfer was printed across the first page. He had to read it before he could sign for it. He looked stunned, Camille told me later. Not angry, not yet, just surprised. For a man who built his reputation on compliance and risk management, being publicly served with fraud allegations was not a small inconvenience. It was exposure. He called me that afternoon. This is unnecessary, he said. No greeting, no attempt at civility. We could have handled this privately. Privately? I repeated. You are escalating. I documented what you did. There was a brief pause on the line. You are trying to destroy my career. I did not submit the expense reports, I replied calmly. He hung up. The internal review at Lakeview Assurance had already been quietly underway. Dana had forwarded structured documentation through appropriate compliance channels weeks earlier. No accusations, just numbers aligned in chronological order. Mileage claims that overlapped with the River North lease, client dinners charged on evenings when no clients were logged into the building, duplicate receipts submitted across separate quarters. Nathan understood audit systems intimately. He simply assumed no one would cross-reference his professional reports with his personal timeline. On September 18th, he was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. I learned through Camille that he was escorted to collect personal belongings under supervision. They disabled his access immediately, she said. Security badge, email, remote login. For someone who measured worth in access and authority, that detail mattered. A former colleague texted me late that night. They walked him in silence. No emojis, no commentary, just that. Public humiliation does not require theatrics. In early October, Lakeview terminated him for cause. The official letter cited falsified reimbursement documentation and violation of corporate ethics policy. He called again. You went to my employer. I followed the paper trail. You have no idea what this does to my future. I am aware of what you did to mine. His breathing grew sharper. You are making this bigger than it needs to be. No, I said quietly. You did that when you moved the money. He went silent. He had built a career evaluating risk exposure for others. He forgot that exposure works both ways. In October, another layer activated. Several transfers from our joint account had moved through an Illinois-based credit union before routing to an Indiana intermediary account and then into a Wisconsin brokerage. Cross-state movement of structured funds triggers scrutiny. A suspicious activity report had been filed. Camille explained it over speakerphone. The Chicago field office is reviewing the pattern, Financial Crimes Division. Is this automatic? I asked. No, she replied, but structured transactions combined with a pending divorce filing and corporate misconduct create alignment. That draws attention. Subpoena followed in November. Bank statements, lease agreements, expense documentation, communication records. Discovery formally began. By then, I no longer felt shock. I felt process. In January 2025, depositions were scheduled. Camille prepared me in a conference room overlooking Oak Brook. "They will frame this as marital disagreement," she said. "Stay factual." I will. "And when they ask why you did not monitor the joint account earlier, I will say, I trusted him." She nodded. "That answer is human. Do not overcomplicate it." The deposition room was cold and overly bright. Nathan arrived with a new attorney, not Camille. She had withdrawn months earlier. He avoided eye contact until questioning began. "I managed our marital finances in good faith," he said under oath. "Transfers were part of routine planning." Camille slid the structured timeline forward. "Can you explain the increase in transfer frequency within 6 months of signing a lease in Chicago?" she asked evenly. "Coincidence. And the corporate expense claims that overlap with personal occupancy dates." "I do not recall." The court reporter's keyboard clicked steadily. Later, during a brief recess, he leaned closer to me. "You are overplaying this," he said quietly. "I am documenting it." By late January 2025, federal prosecutors initiated preliminary plea discussions. Wire transfers across state lines, structured transaction patterns, combined personal and corporate exposure. Camille outlined the options in clear language. If he accepts responsibility early, sentencing exposure may reduce. If he contests and loses, it escalates. Nathan declined the initial offer. "He believes he can argue marital discretion," Camille said after speaking with opposing counsel. "He thinks this remains a civil matter." For a man trained to evaluate probabilities, his confidence bordered on delusion. The pressure tightened. Without severance due determination for cause, his income collapsed. His professional licensing board opened a review. Recruiters stopped returning calls. Networking invitations slowed. The architecture of his life began to fracture in places he had once reinforced. One evening in February, he called again. "You are inviting federal scrutiny into something that could have been settled." "I did not invite scrutiny," I said. "The transfers did." "You could withdraw. I cannot." Silence lingered between us. Then he said it. "I can win this." Not, "I can fix this." Not, "I am sorry." "I can win this." He still saw it as a contest. When I ended the call, my hands trembled for the first time in months. Not from fear, from adrenaline. He controlled risk for a living. Now, he was the risk. The civil case advanced, the federal review intensified, and somewhere between subpoenas and depositions, something shifted permanently. He was no longer shaping the sequence. The system was. Chapter 5. Verdict. By March 2025, there was nothing left to hide behind. The federal courthouse in downtown Chicago did not feel dramatic when I walked through the metal detectors. It felt procedural, quiet, controlled, the kind of place where consequences arrive without theatrics. I sat behind the prosecution table with my hands folded in my lap. Camille sat beside me. Dana Norales was a few rows back, a yellow legal pad resting against her knee. Nathan entered through the side door with his attorney. He looked smaller than I remembered, not physically fragile, just reduced, as if the architecture of certainty he once carried had thinned. He did not look at me. Special Agent Marcus Hale testified first. His voice was steady, measured, almost clinical. A timeline appeared on the courtroom screen. Transfers beginning in June 2021. Structured withdrawals from joint accounts. Incremental amounts under common reporting thresholds. Cross-state wire activity through Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin. Each date illuminated, each amount aligned. This pattern is consistent with structured financial movement intended to avoid automated scrutiny, Agent Hale stated. Not emotional, not accusatory, just precise. Dana testified next. She explained the forensic review of my personal accounts alongside the corporate expense records from Lakeview Assurance. Between 2022 and early 2024, Mr. Cole submitted $38,400 in reimbursement claims overlapping with documented occupancy of a private apartment in Chicago, she said. The prosecutor asked, "Is that consistent with routine business conduct?" "No," Dana replied evenly. "It indicates coordinated misrepresentation." Nathan's attorney attempted to reframe the transfers as marital discretion. "Is it unlawful for a spouse to manage joint funds?" Dana did not blink. "It is unlawful to conceal and structure transfers with intent to deprive and mislead." The courtroom absorbed that sentence. When Nathan chose to testify, I studied his posture, shoulders squared, voice controlled, still certain he could out-reason arithmetic. "He believed the funds were marital property," he said. "I acted within my discretion." Under cross-examination, the prosecutor asked, "Did you inform Miss Hart that your wife had died?" Nathan shifted. "I may have misspoken." "You provided documentation indicating her death. Was it authentic?" "I did not personally verify its origin." He did not look at me. The trial lasted 4 days. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. I sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, palms resting on my knees. For a moment, I wondered if he finally understood what risk felt like when you are the subject of it. Camille leaned toward me. "No matter what happens," she said quietly, "you stood up." When we were called back in, the room felt smaller. The foreperson stood. On the charge of wire fraud, guilty. On the charge of fraudulent transfer, guilty. On the charge of falsified corporate documentation, guilty. Nathan closed his eyes briefly. I did not. Sentencing occurred in April 2025. 5 years in federal prison. 3 years of supervised release following incarceration. Restitution ordered in the amount of $148,920 payable to me. $38,400 payable to his former employer. Asset forfeiture including the 2022 Lexus RX and remaining funds connected to the Chicago apartment. The judge's voice was calm. "Mr. Cole, your professional experience should have reinforced your obligation to comply with the law, not embolden you to manipulate systems you understood." There was no applause, no dramatic outburst, just consequence. Nathan's mother sat 2 rows behind him. She stared forward as the sentence was read. She did not look at me. When he was escorted out through the side door, he did not turn around. For a brief second, I thought about all the evenings I had waited for him to walk through our front door. Now I did not need him to look back. In May, I refinanced the house in Naperville under my name alone. The paperwork felt different this time. Clear, transparent, entirely mine. I opened new checking and savings accounts. I built a 6-month emergency fund covering mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries. I tracked every expense. The first time I paid the mortgage alone, I did not cry. I felt steady. In July 2025, I returned to full-time work as a dental hygienist in Downers Grove. The hours were predictable. The pay was modest compared to what Nathan once earned. It was mine. Some evenings, I sit at my kitchen table with a spreadsheet open, not because I'm afraid of losing everything again, because awareness is power. The most dangerous lie is the one you never verify. People have asked if I feel victorious. I do not. Victory implies competition. This was not a competition. It was a correction. Nathan believed intelligence was insulation. He believed proximity to the law meant protection. He believed risk was something he calculated for others. In the end, arithmetic dismantled him. When I drive past the courthouse now, I do not replay the verdict in my head. I remember the night I opened that first bank statement, the night I chose to look instead of ignore. If you have ever trusted someone completely and never checked the details, learn from my story. Transparency is not suspicion. It is self-respect. And if you're standing in front of a truth that scares you, do not turn away from it. Justice does not begin in a courtroom. It begins the moment you decide to see clearly. If this story made you think about your own life differently, tell me, have you ever ignored a red flag you wish you had confronted sooner? Sometimes the hardest step is not leaving, it's looking.